tiny little village, one in human eyes has very little significance. Bethlehem. Now that next word, Ephrathah, that is what Bethlehem had been called many, many, many years before. It was also a way to mark which Bethlehem was being talked about. Because actually, there were 3 Bethlehems during this time period. This Bethlehem is not huge. Couple thousand residents. We think about Bethlehem, and many times I think we see this city, a metropolis. It wasn't. Very small, very tiny. Too little to be among the clans of Judah. It's not even clan-worthy, it's so small. But God was going to bring a ruler for all of Israel out of it, again. You see, this was the hometown of David, King David. So it had a little bit of prestige. You know, it would have been one of those trivia questions in the year 20 BC, 40 BC. But God was preparing to do something even greater than what David did. The one who would come out had been talked about from old, from ancient of days. Let's take that a step farther. Almost since Adam and Eve had been tossed out of the garden. One that would handle the problems that the nation was encountering. One that would rule over God's people in a manner and fashion worthy of God. Verse 3, therefore, he shall give them up until the time when she who is in labor has given birth. Then the rest of his brothers shall return to the people of Israel. Verse 3 has caused scholars a lot of anguish. Because the she is pretty generic. If we were actually going through the whole book of Micah, we would see where Micah actually calls Israel she in most cases. So Old Testament scholars would say the she referred to here is the nation. When the nation brings forth her ruler. You want to guess who debates this? The New Testament scholars don't like that understanding. They think it's a little too generic. That she has to be that young maiden. Dare I say a virgin. That when her time of labor is up, things will begin to happen. Now, we could debate and argue back and forth a whole lot about who's right and who might be missing it. But here's the important thing. That both a woman and a nation would give birth through God's glory to a coming Messiah. We can give the nation some credit because he will be called the King of the Jews. and the rest of his brothers shall return to the people Israel. There will be a common heritage that unites. Something that isn't being seen currently. There's factions here and there, disputing, disclaiming, arguing. But when he comes, there'll be a conformity, there'll be a movement towards unity, united, dare I say, under God. Verse 4. And he shall stand and shepherd his flock in the strength of the Lord, in the majesty of the name of the Lord his God. He shall stand and shepherd his flock. Did you hear it? It's not the mightiest of arms. It's not the strongest of arms. It's not the most dynamic personality. It's not an authoritarian rule. It's a shepherding. Now, we modern city slickers, let's face it, we're just outside of Richmond. We probably understand urban life a lot better than agricultural life. We might not always get the idea of what a shepherd is. The people hearing Micah understood what shepherding meant. An individual that was responsible for the livestock, responsible for their protection, to fight off wolves and bears, to keep them safe, that they might thrive. The shepherd was responsible for finding them food, grazing lands, a place where they could be nourished and grow appropriately. Now, in order to do this, the shepherd would have to understand the climate. Because at this time of the year, these pastures are green, and at other times it's too cold there, so we need to move over yonder. I like yonder. Not only does he have to know when things grow, he needs to know when the rain's coming, because the ravines. You can't be making your way to the other land and this water just comes down through the trenches because it's flood time. And yet, needs to recognize when flood time is so the animals can get the proper amount of water. If one runs off, it's the shepherd's job to find him. It's the shepherd's job to go out, get, and bring back to the flock. This is a very different idea when it comes to leadership, to kinghood. But this is what God has promised. But he doesn't do it in his own strength. He shepherds the strength. He shepherds the flock in the strength of the Lord. The strength of the Lord. I love that phrase because it entails so much. Yes, yes, yes. I know we understand God is all powerful. That's a good thing. That's an easy thing. But so many times, God's power doesn't make sense to us mortal human beings. He asks us to do strange things. You know what I mean? My favorite illustration, of course, is Jericho. Because I don't know that you get a stranger story in all of the Bible. Israel, I want you to take this city, and here's how you do it. You march around it once every day for 6 days. And on the 7th day, you're going to march around it 6 times. You're going to blow your trumpets, and the city is yours. That's a strange strength. It doesn't make sense to us. There are other places that it's equally strange. You get a prophet, one that writes a book of the Bible, that is called to go to a group of people he doesn't like, and he tries to run away. So he gets swallowed by a whale. He gets spewed out so that he ends up going to the very people he was running away from. That's a strange strength. But it'll get stranger, because that shepherd is going to come, and he's going to tell us that we are to go into the world and make disciples of him, not by force, but by love. And when we're met with violence, when we're met with anger, we love. When they slap us on one cheek, the highest insult possible, we're to turn the other one for them too. It's a strange strength, but it's what God is bringing to us. In the majesty of the name of the Lord his God, he stands strong in God's strength, not necessarily because he wants to, but he realizes God will be glorified for it. The one that comes isn't thinking about himself, he's thinking of a higher purpose. Now, I know you're sitting there and saying, but Jesus is God. There is no higher purpose, but he always points to the Father. On the cross, Father, forgive them. It's not about him. I am convinced that he did this to show us the way we are to live. That life's trials and circumstances aren't just about us, but it's about giving glory to God. And they shall dwell secure, for now he shall be great to the ends of the earth. Subtle change, but an important one. Back in verse 3, we see, when she who is in labor is given birth, then the rest of his brothers shall return, individuals with a common heritage, a common nationality. He comes first to his brethren, but now his security is so great that it'll extend to the ends of the earth. Do you hear it? It becomes a gift to all people. The benefits of his reign does not reside solely in Israel, but it will spread out of a little insignificant town like Bethlehem. And he shall be their peace. When the Assyrian comes into our land and treads it in our palaces, then we will raise against him 7 shepherds and 8 princes of men. Wow, I have no idea what that means. Okay, maybe I told a fib. Maybe I have a little insight for you. But this one coming out of Bethlehem shall be their peace. And the Assyrians, anyone remember who the Assyrians were? Interestingly enough, that's where the prophet was going, to Nineveh, to talk to the Assyrians. They were a people that were firmly rooted in their own idea, their own plan. The strongest arm ruled. Their way was the right way. They did whatever pleased them. If we take it in the most general sense, which Micah seems to do throughout his book, the Assyrians are anyone that is an adversary or enemy to God. Someone who is living life by their rules, by their own standards. And when they come into the land, when they attempt to corrupt, when they attempt to control, when they attempt to destroy the relationship with this coming prince, then we will rise against them 7 shepherds and 8 princes of men. Church, here is some Jewish prophetic numerology. What it is saying is, and in those times, 7, the number of holiness. 8, the number of sufficiency. What God is saying, when those times come, when invaders come to stop the faith, when they come to try and pull us away from this great king coming through Bethlehem, there will be enough holy ones to resist. They shall shepherd the land of Assyria with the sword, and the land of Nimrod at its entrances, and he shall deliver us from the Assyrian when he comes into our land and treads within our border. There will always be a remnant that God holds and serves through, that works through their lives. It doesn't matter what's going on the outside, on the inside. God has complete and total reign because of this extraordinary Messiah. The promise has been given in this small town. From there, this all-powerful, all-loving, all-caring, all-capable will show himself in flesh. And he will handle the most problematic elements of society. Sin. In all of its manifestations. You know, pride, greed, gluttony. He will rule by mercy and love. He doesn't rule from afar. He's very present, leading folks to where they need to be for their benefit and the benefit of others. And he will do it completely to the glory of God. We're narrowing down who the possible Messiah could be in a time frame that the earliest possible start of his ministry, of his life, will be around 40 BC to the latest date that it's all culminated and everything starts to get crazy again, 70 AD. From Daniel, we get a time slot. Now God is saying, but it's not going to be worldwide. You don't have to search all over. God isn't playing hide and go seek. He wants us to know. And God, instead of choosing a megalopolis of millions of people, chose a village with a couple thousand. So easy to calculate. From Bethlehem. From Bethlehem, which was called Ephrathah. I will bring about the chosen one. One that desires to shepherd you. One whose name and majesty and glory will spread throughout the world to the ends of the earth. And he will shepherd them. And when problems arise, as problems always seem to do, there will be a sufficient amount of holy people to keep the eyes focused on God and on Jesus. God revealed this to Micah. Micah shouted it to his nation. But you know what's amazing, church? You are the sufficiency. We are that people. Because we have understood what the Messiah taught and what he displayed. We know what he did and we know what he desires. And he has placed his Spirit in us. That when the craziness of our world happens, when we look around and we get to the place that we say, how in the world did this ever happen? We're to stand strong. Because he's empowered us. Because of that one born in 6 BC in a stable in Bethlehem has forever changed our lives. Now, if he hasn't changed your life, I do ask that you would come and speak with me. You can grab me this morning, you can text me, you can call me, you could call the office Monday through Thursday. But it's important that you know, you recognize, and you serve this risen Messiah. In fact, while he was with us, in the last night of his human freedom, before he was betrayed and captured by the Romans and the high priests. He was celebrating the Passover with his disciples. And in celebrating, he gave them a look into the short-term future. As they were sitting around discussing the great things that God had done to bring his people out of Egypt, he looked at them, and as they were having their meal, he took the loaf. It was just a common element, unleavened bread, something that would be on every table. But he lifted it up to God and he blessed it. He said, "This is my body, broken for you." Not broken because he was weak. Not broken because he had failed in some way. But broken that you could remain whole. And he looked at them and he said, "As often as you take of this, take it in remembrance of me." Okay. He did much the same with the cup. The fruit of the vine. Again, abundant in Israel. On every table. The poor or wealthy would have access to. The common drink of the day. And he looked at it and he raised it and he blessed it. My blood, shed for you for the remission of sin. That sin would no longer have its effect on you. This is the new covenant in my blood. That when my blood is over you, all God sees is Jesus' righteousness. There was nothing dynamic that happened. It's common. But in that setting, there was a spirit that was different. As often as you do this in remembrance of me until I come again. It's a memorial and a look forward. That just as his blood would be shed in days, he will come again and claim us unto himself. Therefore, as we take the cup, we take it in thanksgiving for what he has already accomplished. Salvation. And with the hope that one glorious day he shall return and he shall reign. Drink. Drink to the glory of God. And in keeping with the way they closed their time of worship, fellowship at the Last Supper. They sang. Because their hearts were full that the Messiah had come and he was taking care of our circumstances. So we ask, stand and sing with a joyful heart